Imagine you are a soldier who survived the apocalypse. The sky burned above you. You watched a demon Primarch fall. Against all odds, you are alive. The war of Armageddon is over. Then you hear a sound. Not a roar of a chain axe, but the hum of a teleportation. Silver giants appear in the mist. The Grey Knights. The Emperor's final gift to humanity. You think you're saved. You think these are angels sent to escort you home. But then you realize the air has grown cold. They aren't looking at the enemy. They are looking at you. And in that moment, you realize a terrifying truth about the Imperium. This is the sound that you hope you never hear. The silence of a Grey Knight. They are the chamber militant of the Ordo Malleus. In the lore, we are told they are the ultimate shield against chaos, incorruptible, holy, and pure. They are the hero who stand against the darkness. But after the battle is done, are they really a savior or an executioner? Today, we are deep diving into the darkest chapter of their history. We are not talking only about the heroic banishment of demons. We are talking about the months of shame. But before we go ahead, make sure you to subscribe and tell me your thoughts in the comments. Are they heroes or monsters? Let's begin. So the Month of Shame is an event where the Grey Knights under the orders of the Inquisition orchestrated the cold-blooded murder of millions of loyal veterans. It is a story where the good guys destroyed refugee ships carrying women and children. A story where the Space Wolves, the savage execution of ferries, had to teach the Holy Grey Knights the meaning of honor. The line between a hero and a monster is a thin line. And during the Months of Shame, the Grey Knights didn't just cross the line, they obliterated. But to understand the tragedy, we must first understand the victory. The first war of Armageddon was a meat grinder. Angron, the demon Primarch called the World Eaters, had descended upon the High World. This wasn't just a rebellion, it was a terraforming of reality. The slaughter was industrial. The population was butchered by millions to feed the ritual of corn. Against this red tide stood the Imperial Guard and the Space Wolves, led by the great wolf Logan Grimnar. They bled for every inch of ground, but eventually this drew them to the arms of the Inquisition, who summoned the Grey Knight. A brother of 109 Terminators teleported directly into the heart of the demonic horde to banish Angron. They succeeded, but the cost was astronomical. Only a handful of the Grey Knights survived the battle, but Angron was gone. The World Eaters were broken. The surviving guardsmen and civilians, battered and traumatized, looked up to the ruins and realized they had won. They had seen the face of hell and lived to tell the tale. And this was their crime. This brings us to the core comparison of logic versus morality. The Lord Inquisitor Kisnaros is operating on a cold, brutal calculation. The Inquisition believed that the mere knowledge of demons, specifically Demon Primarch, was a chaotic contagion. If the citizen of Armageddon knew that one of the Emperor's own sons had become a demon, their fate might shatter. So Kisnaros issued a decree: containment. The entire population of Armageddon, the brave survivors who held the line, were sentenced to sterilization and forced labor in camp until they died. But for the millions of guardsmen, the sentence was simpler. They were packed into colossal transport ships, told they were being redeployed on other war zones, but it was a lie. The Grey Knights were ordered to escort this transport, and once they reached deep space, the order was given. The Grey Knights, the paragons of honor, opened fire. They vaporized ships filled with loyal soldiers who had just fought beside them. They are the monsters in the truest sense, not because they enjoyed the killing, that would be simple, but because they felt nothing. They viewed the mass murder of veterans as a necessary sanitation protocol. Let's take a look at one specific incident to truly understand the scale of this horror. The transport ship, the Trident of ILMATHA. This vessel carried nearly 400,000 souls, soldiers, support staff, refugees, people who had just survived the butcher's nails. The Grey Knights pulled alongside it. There was no warning, no demand for surrender. The Grey Knights simply unleashed a torpedo assault. 400,000 lives died in seconds. These were not heretics. They were the people the Aztecs were created to protect. But there was one force that refused to accept this butcher's bill: the Space Wolves. The Wolves of Ferris have always been the Emperor's executioners, yes. They are savage, they are feral, but they possess a tribal code of honor that the Inquisition lacks. Logan Grimnar looked at the survivors of Armageddon and saw warriors worthy of respect. When he learned of the sterilization camp and the destruction of troop transport, the Great Wolf did not just file a complaint, he snapped. The Space Wolves began to actively shield the refugee ships. They placed their own battle barges between the Grey Knights and the defenseless human transports. Think about the gravity of this. You have two loyalist chapters, two cousins of the Astartes, staring each other down over gun sight. The Inquisition, arrogant and drunk on their own authority, demanded the wolves to stand down. They claimed the wolves were risking the soul of the Imperium. Grimnar replied that the Inquisition was risking his neck. This started the war that we call the Months of Shame. For months, the Space Wolves escorted this doomed ship trying to get them to safety, and for months, the Inquisition and the Grey Knights pursued them. It was a hunt. Now look at the Grey Knights' perspective here. It is important to understand they were not doing this out of malice. Grandmaster Joros, the leader of the Eighth Brotherhood, acted as a Kisnaru's blade. They truly believed that even if one soldier tainted by the knowledge of Angron escaped, the entire system could fall to chaos. They viewed the wolves as sentimental fools who were too barbaric to understand the bigger picture. But the wolves saw the Grey Knights as the mind-wiped automatons. The tension snapped when the Inquisition ordered the Grey Knights to fire on the Space Wolf ships directly. The Grey Knights obeyed. They crippled the wolf ships. They murdered their brothers to maintain a secret. They fired on the Sons of Rus. And doing so, they started a war they could not finish. The conflict escalated until both sides agreed to a parley. They met in a neutral space, near the planet Troyes. The Lord Inquisitor Kisnarus and the Grey Knights Grandmaster Joros invited Logan Grimnar to negotiate a truce. Now pause and consider the arrogance of the Inquisition here. They believed they could demand an apology from the Great Wolf. They believed the Space Wolves, faced with the threat of being declared excommunicados, would bend the knee. But they didn't understand anything. Grimnar teleported on the bridge. He didn't come to apologize, he came to judge. Grandmaster Joros stood there, a psyker of immense power, a warrior who had banished demons that drive normal men insane, and he demanded Grimnar yield. He spoke of duty and Inquisition authority. I want you to picture the speed of this moment. There was no duel, there was no cinematic exchange of blows. Grimnar didn't hesitate. Before the Grandmaster could blink, before his psychic words could flare, the Axel Morkai moved. Grimnar split the Grandmaster Terminator breastplate like a wet paper. He didn't just kill him, he executed him on his own bridge, surrounded by his own elite. The axe showed through ceramite, flesh and bone. The remaining Grey Knights leveled their stone bolters, but they didn't fire. They were frozen. Why? Because the sheer violence, the absolute conviction of the Great Wolf shattered their logic. They were looking at the loyalist chapter master who had just beheaded their leader, and they knew, deep down, that he was the one acting with honor. Grimnar looked at the terrified Inquisitor Kisnarus and said, I have not come here to play games. He had proven a point. The Space Wolves were not dogs to be whipped. Grimnar killed Kisnarus shortly after, effectively decapitating the leadership of the Purge. But the madness didn't stop there. The Inquisition is nothing if not vindictive. The Red Hunters and the remaining Grey Knights laid a siege to Ferris itself. This is hypocrisy I speak. To save the Imperium from the potential taints of chaos, the Inquisition was willing to destroy a first founding loyalist chapter. They bombarded Ferris. The Grey Knights teleported to the Fang, fighting through the corridors of the Wolf Fortress. Brother killing brother, while the enemies of the mankind laughed in the dark. It only ended when the wolves played their trump card. They woke him up. Beyond the Fell ended, the oldest living warrior in the Imperium, a dreadnought who had worked beside the Emperor himself. When Beyond teleported into the battlefield, the shooting stopped. Even the Grey Knights with all their secrecy and pride lowered their weapon. You did not fire upon a warrior who fought in the Horus heresy. You did not disrespect a legend who knew Leman Russ. Beyond negotiated the end of the Months of Shame. The Inquisition backed down, and the Purge was halted. But the damage was done. Thousands of Space Wolves and Grey Knights lay dead in the snow. The survivors of Armageddon were mostly dead, their sacrifice forgotten, their lives spent like currency by the Inquisition. The Months of Shame remains a stain on the honor of the Grey Knights. It is a secret they kept locked away in the vaults of Titan, deeper even than the names of the demons they banish. Eventually, this drew them to the arms of a terrible realization. They had failed. They had won the war of Armageddon. but had lost their soul in the process. The Grey Knights claimed to be the Emperor's angels, shining with the light of purity. But during these months, their light was cold, sterile, and merciless. To the Inquisition, the people of Armageddon were just numbers on the spreadsheet. To the Grey Knights, they were a contamination risk. To the Wolves, they were people. I want to know in the comments now, who was right? Was the Inquisition justified in purging millions to prevent a potential chaos outbreak? Or was Logan Grimnar right to risk a civil war to save the men and the women who had already given everything? So make sure you subscribe and tell me your opinions in the comments, as I tend to learn more reading those and it will help me a lot. So, are the Grey Knights heroes or monsters? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.